Thanks, Anjum ma'am. Thanks for joining us. It's a complete pleasure to be talking to you.
Thank you.
Let's jump straight to the questions. I want to ask you first. We are a month away from the T20 World Cup, and what are your impressions about Harmanpreet's Team India?
It's a good team. It's the team that probably was the best possible available 15 or 16 and the traveling reserves that India could have picked. And I don't think there are many changes from, say, let's say last year when India played against Australia or England in the T20 at home. From there on till how they've gone up to Sri Lanka to play the Asia Cup, there are not many changes. Yes, ideally I would have probably felt the requirement for a seam bowling all-rounder one more rather than a spinner. But then, as I said, the options were not available. I'm assuming that the options were not available to the selectors because of whether the players are lack of form or not fit, whatever. So it's the best possible available 15 that they've gone ahead with.
Next question would be, the World Cup has already moved to the UAE. Does it make any difference to the team now? Is it a better thing for the World Cup to move to UAE than Bangladesh? Does it change anything for Team India?
For me, I would say that if it was in Bangladesh, excellent, because you would have had wonderful crowds. We would have had an atmosphere, a cricket-loving audience in Bangladesh for the women's game, and that would have been like perfect with all the announcements that have come in the very recent week with the prize money and with women's cricket climbing the charts over the past few years. It would have been ideal to have a stadium in Dhaka or a Sylhet to be full with people and coming and watching and enjoying women's games. So ideally, it would have been nice to be in Bangladesh. Yeah. But for the World Cup to shift to the UAE, I guess the wickets are going to be a lot different. It's going to be still very warm in the UAE as well, because they are just entering into the winter stage as well. So weather-wise, that will in any case be a challenge in the UAE. But other than that, I think the wickets that especially India is playing a lot more league games in Dubai than in Sharjah. I think they just have one game in Sharjah. Yeah. So yes, the pitches will be good, and I feel for India to maybe the dominate is a word, or probably for India to have a good competitive game. It's always better. My view is that it's better that India plays on good flat batting tracks rather than challenging pitches where they have to graft to score those runs. Yeah. I feel in Indian team there are more players who would prefer batting on a good batting pitch and then the bowlers coming in and supporting them rather than the opposite.
Yeah. Next is, again, Australia is the most dominant team in the competition. Then we have England also, and we have seen in 2023, India lost in the semis to them, and then in 2020 it was the final. We don't have a great record against either of them. So how does that change? Is it about the talent, or is it about a mental makeup where the Indians are not able to go past these two teams?
I think it's on a given day, you have to play good cricket, first and foremost, irrespective whether it is in front of a team which is just qualified from the ICC qualifiers coming in, whether they are ranked higher or lower than India on the charts. It really doesn't make that much of an impact, because on that given day, any team can be dangerous. We've seen that already. Yeah. Asian Cup, Asia Cup was one of those examples where Sri Lanka beat us hands down, and they were a team which was progressing. We were a team which was stagnant. Yeah. So for me, it doesn't really. I think now cricket has evolved to a stage where you need to play good cricket. Number one. Number two is getting past an opposition which has beaten us. Of course, England and Australia are oppositions which have beaten us more. Even New Zealand has had a good record against us. So it will be a combination of skill and performance. Yeah. That has to go hand in hand. It's not about mental skill or physical skill. Yeah. It has to be a complete cohesive association or a combination which has to progress for everyone on the team. It just doesn't need to be for one or two people. It has to be for everyone. For me, it's not about mental strength. It's about skill. It's about enhancing your skill level and being there at that moment and being ready to perform in the in the requirement according to the situation. It's not about if I have the mental strength to go past, then I will be able to cross the hurdle. No, I should first have the skill to get there, and then the mental ability to balance that skill for allowing me to cross the hurdle. So it's a combination of both. But what comes first or second, I'll still say skill comes first.
So when you talk about skill, I know from the outset it feels that fielding is one of those things that could separate these two teams from us. Do you see an improvement, or are we still looking to bridge that gap?
The fielding part?
Yes, not just fielding. Say if you talk about other aspects, be it power hitting, of course we have Shifani, but then overall, if we look at the teams, how do you think India is doing in those departments?
See, as I say, India is a good team. We've done well over the past few years. I mean, we don't need to look at just the records, but then that's an indication of how well we have done over the past few years. And it's a steady climb. It can't be a steep climb. Overnight, we can't become world champions. So it's been a steady climb. That's why every defeat in the final pinches and hurts this Indian team even more, because they know that they have missed an opportunity. And since few years it's been happening with the Indian team. So it pinches us, it pinches everyone, that why are we not able to cross the hurdle? We're trying to still identify. That's why the mental strength part is all coming in. But that's one of the facets of being able to perform at the highest level.
Yeah.
So as I say, it's not just one thing. It's not about power hitting. It's about having the ability to have the better of the situation. So sometimes even if you require 9 runs and over, it doesn't necessarily need to be power hitting, which allows you to get those 9 runs. It can be scored with singles, it can be scored with a boundary or with a big shot coming through. And it has happened with India, where you're in a striking distance, but because we've lost wickets, we've lost the match. It happened in South Africa as well against Australia. So
Yeah.
I'll still say that power hitting ability is absolutely essential, yes. But with Deepti Sharma coming through in the middle overs, with Richa Ghosh, becoming more experienced than what she was about 4 years ago, Pooja Vastrakar becoming a better player than what she was a few years ago. So I guess we do have the players. It's just about them delivering when it really matters.
Yeah.
And once these players actually deliver, they will have that confidence on their own self that they are good and they can become world beaters and they can come out there and dominate any bowling that they are faced up with. It's about crossing that hurdle once. It's like Deepti Sharma. I mean, look at her getting that 6 down the ground in Lords.
Yeah.
And making her team win in the 100. Deepti Sharma doesn't get to bat when she's playing for India. Rarely gets an opportunity.
Yeah.
And somebody who's opened the innings, batting the middle order, lower middle order, now getting a player of the tournament in the WPL last season to having a maximum 6 hit down the ground at Lords to getting a team win. So, these small challenges that she has overcome will help her. Small challenges that Richa Ghosh will overcome, or Pooja, or anybody else in the middle, or even Jemmy, that all these things will help them individually, and collectively that will make a massive difference.
Have the 2 seasons of WPL really helped the Indian players in any sense? Of course, experience-wise, match time, but what sort of difference can it make? Pressure situations I can think of.
It has. I think the responsibility that the players feel on their own shoulders with playing in franchise cricket. When they come into WPL, there are international players. Being an Indian product, they want to succeed. They know what's at stake. It's like, obviously, stardom is there, but then if you are able to get your franchise to a win and dominate or contribute through the tournament, you're highlighted, you are followed. Apart from that, when you perform as an international player, or even as a domestic player alongside an international cricketer, you know that you're rubbing shoulders with the best. That gives you a nice high.
Yeah.
If your team wins, obviously you're highlighted, and if you're a player coming through the ranks, immediately you get that attention. So WPL has certainly helped, because that you will only get picked if you have decent performances or a decent skill level. So it's up to you as a first class cricketer or as a budding cricketer, what you make of that opportunity. And players who, like especially India players who have these opportunities, for them to make these opportunities count, I think it's everything to play for. So I guess that responsibility that everyone individually feels playing WPL and carrying that team forward on their shoulders, I guess that's just helped them grow into a better cricketer.
Of course, we have a few players who have done very well at the WPL and kind of made their way into the Indian team from there on. So, in that aspect, how do you rate the WPL when you see, say, a WBBL or the 100 or the leagues abroad? So,
I don't watch a lot of. I do follow, but I won't. It's not that I, because I work on the WPL, so I obviously follow WPL. I follow other leagues as well, but I don't end up watching each and every game.
yeah.
But what I've heard is that WPL is very competitive. I won't say that it's the most competitive tournament, because every sport is competitive, every game is competitive. But this is what people who have played or covered or have been a part of all the other franchise tournaments come in and say that WPL is a competitive tournament, and it's a high octane event, and it brings in massive crowds, and a tournament that they look forward to. So that's their feeling. So I feel that WPL, if it's living up to the reputation, we are from India. The tournament obviously is very dear to all of us, and if it can churn out the response, which is probably impactful in the world of cricket, then obviously we're happy.
Ma'am, one of the aspects which is very much talked about WPL, sorry, I'm digressing a bit. The financial security of players, does that also make a difference to the confidence of a player?
Uh, I think it would. So I will probably, I wouldn't know the answer 100%,
Yeah.
because I have not been in that situation myself. And if I today have to look back, and I'll be only guessing, because a 20, let's say a 25-year-old, or a 20-year-old, between a 20 and a 25-year-old, if that is an age group, that if I want to pick on, to give an example, if they are paid millions,
Yeah.
or continue to earn a good hefty amount for a few weeks, 3 weeks tournament, or let's say 10 matches, 11 matches, or lesser than that. Well, it can be. It certainly is encouraging. I mean, at the end of the day, if I'm remunerated very well, it's certainly very encouraging. It's a massive drive in all positiveness. But how it really impacts, is that the only driving force, or does it become a driving force ahead of probably playing for India? That I wouldn't be able to know. But yes, it's certainly massive incentive that you're paid for your skill, or the hope that your skill will come in handy for the franchise.
Absolutely. Coming back to the T20 World Cup, ma'am, I want to talk about Harmanpreet Kaur. She's a great batter, great
Yeah.
captain for India. But something like not being picked for the 100 or the WBBL, would it play on her mind at all? Or would
So
this
yes,
be a reason for her to prove herself once again?
see, as far as I am aware, she was picked for the 100, but she withdrew from the tournament,
Yeah.
because obviously the Asia Cup was coming around, or maybe they had to go just. I think after the South African series, they were to travel for the 100, and 2, 3 tournaments were coming around together. I wouldn't say that she. Yes, the news comes out that she was in the draft and she wasn't picked, but again, I'm not 100% sure whether she pulled out of the tournament herself prior to the auction, or did she communicate, because it's not essential that you always need to make a headline that I'm coming out. Things could be communicated to the decision makers in
Right.
any case. B is that does not define Harmanpreet Kaur as an Indian captain.
Right.
She has been there, she has performed, she's been one of the best performers. That really hasn't added to any points to her being as a cricketer when she plays for India. She's supposed to perform there. So, and I'm not saying all this in a defense. Whether it was even a Deepti Sharma or a Richa Ghosh not picked for, like a Yastika Bhatia is picked for the WBBL, whereas she's not even come back and played cricket for India after an injury, but she was picked for WBBL. So that's thinking ahead. So I won't dwell into it and think of it as a negative thing. You do not know when you're on the table whether you require a player of that ticket size to come in and play as an international professional, and now that also not start, because I think India is playing a series, or maybe they finish the series with New Zealand, and they might just end up missing a couple of games. The availability of the player, or how the ticket size of at which that player comes in, would you be able to do justice to the bank balance that you have to buy the other players? So all those combinations do come into play. And now I can safely say this is because when I follow the WPL auction, I've also sat down, and not that I've sat on the decision table, but when you have to talk about it, you have to understand the numbers before giving your viewpoint. So that also would make a difference. But at the end of the day, even if she is not picked up, I don't think it will do any harm to Harmanpreet, because there's a busy season for Indian cricket. After the World Cup, they come back immediately and play a 3-match ODI series against New Zealand. Then the domestic cricket simultaneously would have begun. They'll be playing against Ireland. They'll be playing against the West Indies. So they have a lot of cricket lined up. And for her to manage herself, I think it's probably I'm not sure whether she pulled out or whether it's a blessing in disguise. But yeah, every player wants a little time off to get their act in proper order. So maybe let's see.
Talking about the team combination, we spoke about it briefly. But do you think overall the Indian team misses an express pacer like Jhulan?
Yeah.
Tita Sadhu could have been the one, but she's not there in the squad. So do you think that is one area that we could have looked at?
Where is Titash Sadhu? The whole country is looking for her right now. We do not know. I was asked about this question even earlier in the day today. I said, where is Titash Sadhu? I said, we're all looking for her. I'm not sure whether she's in the NCA or she was in the NCA, but we don't know. She was missing in action, I think, after the WPL. She played one game, I think, against England, where she did well. But whether she's injured herself or she's recovering or doing a rehab, no one is aware of it. But yes, Indian team is missing an out-and-out pace bowler. I will say that because Pooja Vasarkar Touchwood has done well, she can use that space. So probably Indian team requires a pace bowler also, and also a seam bowling all-rounder. I would say a seam bowling all-rounder is something which will really help balance out this Indian team and play players according to the conditions that we are faced with. Whether you're playing in a slow and turning track or a slow wicket, or whether we're playing in a good batting track, so we can balance out our options accordingly if we can add on a seam bowling all-rounder.
Of course, you're not in the selector's shoes, but then do you think someone like a Shikha Pandey could have done well? Because we haven't seen her in the Indian setup for quite some time now. But could she be have been the answer for that missing link?
No, I don't think so. I don't think she has been around, and I think the last time when she played was in 23 World Cup. She was a part of the squad. As I've always felt that she has immense potential, but she hasn't lived up to that potential as a batter, especially as a bowler. Yes, she's contributed as a batter. Since the time I've watched Shikha Pandey, I always felt that she was that answer to that seam bowling all rounder I was talking about. That perfect all rounder to fit in. I feel she's let those opportunities go by. And now for her to make the climb back, it's going to be, if she can, she's playing all around the world, which is very good. She's playing, contributing for the Delhi Capitals in the WPL, which is excellent. And the contribution is there. But does that contribution go ahead to be counted in for an Indian selection? Maybe. The door is not closed, but I guess she will, now if she has to come back, then she'll have to contribute. She should contribute with more than one skill.
Yeah. Coming to the last set of questions, ma'am. If you were to pick the playing 11 for the entire tournament for Team India, what would your 11 be?
So I would be tempted to squeeze in an S Asha in this lineup. Apart from, if I have to squeeze in the spinners, of course, Deepti Sharma and Shriyanka Patil would be probably preferred. But with these two spinners, Deepti will obviously walk in as an all-rounder. The seam bowlers will be Pooja Vasarkar, and to start with, of course, Renuka Singh Thakur. But apart from that, whether Radha Yadav or S Asha get a look in, that'll be interesting to see. Ideally, if S Asha can be squeezed into the playing 11, it will really provide a little bit of a difference or a balance to that lineup. If Shriyanka doesn't fit in, then probably we can have a offie left arm and a leggy as an option to the seam bowlers. But in all respects, I would still think that India needs to go in with 6 bowling options, not 5. They've been playing with 5 bowling options. It worked. Barely it worked against South Africa. In fact, South Africa, it was a leveled series. Yeah. So it didn't work at home. It didn't work very well in Sri Lanka. So India will need to should go in with 6 bowling options, not just 5 bowling options, and keeping that option in the front, then balance out your batters. So obviously, you would want your Shafali Verma right at the top in the company of Smriti Mandana, or even have an option of opening with, if any of the batters is not in form, any of the openers is not in the best of form, then you have the option of opening with maybe a Richa Ghosh or a Jemima Rodrigues, and then Harmanpreet. I've always felt Harmanpreet should walk in at number 3 instead of number 4 in the T20 format. So if she can promote herself up, that will just give the luxury of whether it's a Pooja Vastrakar or a Jemima Rodrigues to come one notch higher, or even open with Jemima Rodrigues. If one of the openers is not firing it, so keep that flexibility on, because it might be required. Yeah, we are facing good competition. So if we set that batting order according to the way that we have gone ahead in the last 2 series with South Africa and Sri Lanka, then I guess we might not be able to, my view again, not be able to take the best advantage of our batters well enough. We might be having I'm not saying we need to have an aggressive approach, but we can have an approach which can assist us better. If it doesn't work, it's always easy to fall back. But later on, deciding after 10 overs are gone, to change or shift gears is not going to be that easy.
On parting note, ma'am, what are the 3 reasons that India is going to win this T20 World Cup in your eye?
If I can get one reason also is good enough. I think one reason if India wins this World Cup, it doesn't need to be a reason. It just needs to be a wish come true. I think we'll be dancing in the aisles. We don't need open buses. I think that before the country starts celebrating, I think UAE will be celebrating India's win, and I'm sure it's gonna be like a dream come true. England has held, the women's team has held the 50 and the T20 trophies together. Australia just wins too many trophies, so we've lost count of that. But for India to win a World Cup, I guess it will be such a glorious moment, such a humbling, glorious, happy, exciting, whatever adjective you want to use to describe that moment. It will be that kind of a moment. And I'm not even saying men's World Cup and women's World Cup. I'm not even going there. I'm just saying let India women's team win a World Cup. That will be like such a happy moment for everyone. I mean, for us, it will be brilliant. Players obviously will be happy, but as a nation, I think it will be very rewarding.
That's it. Thanks a lot, ma'am. Thanks for taking out time to talk with us, and all the best for the tournament.
Thank you so much. Thank you.